Death and Aliens, an in-depth look at horror and sci-fi TV from two friends who vaguely know what they're doing. I'm Courtney,
And I'm MK.
and how are you?
Um, Today, one of my students told me I go to bed too late. I told
Do
him
they know when you go to bed?
they asked, I said that I don't like to, that I told them that my perfect ideal work day for school, if they wanted me to be the best teacher I could be, would be if I got to work from like 10:30 to 5 instead of
Mhm.
7:30 to 3. Like,
Yeah,
it would be so good. And I was like, because I really struggle to get up in the morning. And they were like, well, are you getting enough sleep? Because, eighth graders suddenly turn into your mom when you don't
right.
need them to. They're like, are you
Sure,
getting enough
sure.
sleep? And I was like, probably not. They were like, what time do you go to bed? I was like 10 or 11 o'clock. And they go, oh, no, that's too late. I go to bed at 8 o'clock. And I was like, oh, fuck.
What is lame loser? That's what you just said.
What? Um,
Loser.
and
That's why I can't
and
be a
my kid,
teacher.
he was like, yeah, I go to bed at like 8 o'clock. He goes, and then I get up at 6. And I was like, that's so nice. I don't. I go, what time? They're like, what time do you get up? I go, what time should I get up? 5:30. What time do I get up? 7. And they were like, school starts at 7:30. I go, yup,
Here I am.
I'm here. But when I was thinking about the fact that they thought it was 10 o'clock was too late of a bedtime for me, and it's now after 10 o'clock right now as we begin our recording,
Sure
I
is.
also thought about the fact that they would die if they knew that Kevin Hart kept me up till 1, 2 o'clock in the morning last week.
They sure would. Your students, my God, would lose their minds if they knew your
Um,
secret life out of teaching.
yeah. So yeah, I met Kevin Hart last week.
Love.
Honestly, it was the wildest experience of my life because like he was perfectly lovely. Like he was very pleasant. Wasn't like super social with like the staff or anything and but like not rude about it. Just like went on stage and went to his dressing room, whatever. And his security was wild. Like the amount of security that needed to be happening at all times backstage was insane to me. Um, um, so it was just like really the strangest shift I've ever had. Um, well, two shifts. I worked two shows. Um, but he was very nice. He is in fact just as short as you think. Like
That's
Courtney,
what I've heard.
he might not be taller than you.
Look at
Like,
besties, twinsies.
no, he's probably a little bit taller than you, but like,
I think he's 5'3". I've looked it up. I think he's 5'3".
because if you look it up, there are some places that say he's 5'4" or 5'5". I promise you he's not. I am
Mhm.
5'5.5", 5'6", depending on what shoes I'm wearing. The man went to my shoulder.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, which was only really funny to me because one of the nights that I was working, a couple of the Buffalo Bills players came backstage to hang out with him, and it was like one of them was Deion Dawkins, who's an offensive lineman who's 6'5".
I can't imagine.
And I was like, guys, I just want to be up in the dressing room because I just wanted to see Kevin and Dion standing next to each other. Like I cannot.
You see, this is why everybody's like, why don't you want to date tall guys? Because I don't want to look like a freak. Like, have you seen when short people and like super tall people stand together?
I
Over six
actually
foot, I look insane.
No, I actually did. This girl the other day on TikTok posted a video of her, and then with a measuring tape next to her to indicate the heights of all the different main male characters from the Sarah J. Maas books. And one of them is 7 feet tall, and this girl was 5'3".
Absolutely
And so
not.
she had the measuring tape up for the 7 foot tall character and the little 5'3" her, and she's like,
See? Ugh.
um, but no, Kevin's team was wonderful, and like at the end of the week, they gave every single one of us a bottle of Kevin Hart's tequila.
Oh my goodness, that's so exciting. Is it good?
Yeah. I haven't opened it yet. I'm saving it for my
Oh,
birthday.
it's so long.
I know, but it's like good
But
like
that's
sipping.
fair.
It's like good
It's
like
just,
sipping
yeah.
tequila. It's not like mixing
Mm,
tequila.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
I can't wait to hear about it.
And yeah. Um
I'm also really glad to know he's nice because I know I already texted you this when I found out you were doing the Kevin Hart stuff. I was like, he's always giving me like mixed vibes. I can't I can't pick up from him like if I like him or not. And so I was
No,
glad to
I
hear
mean
that he
like the
like seems
first
like a decent person.
yeah, like the first night he was there, like he was like FaceTiming his son backstage. It was really sweet. I
Hmm.
wasn't there that night, but I heard about it. The second, um, my favorite story, and he actually told this as a joke in his routine, which I know they didn't film it when it was here. So, and I don't know if it is being filmed or if it was filmed. I know that clips of it won't show up online really because there's no cameras allowed in the theater at all when
Yeah.
he's on tour. Um, but the first night there, his security guard, like his personal bodyguard, fucking busted his ass on the stairs at the hotel because the ice like wiped out. So then backstage, the head of security, like the head of venue security who worked with me, he was like, "Hey, can I get like a wet side, like a wet floor sign?" And I was like, "Sure." So I called the environmental services and we got it. And he taped the bodyguard's name to the wet floor sign and stuck it right at the door that we let them in.
That is so funny.
It was so funny. And so they were like cracking up about that and like Kev was like dying laughing at that. And then his last night he went outside like to the front of the theater to like take pictures of the venue and everything. And he just comes back inside and he goes, "Did you know?" He like looked me dead in the face and said, "Did you know it's fucking cold out there?" I was like, "Yes, yes, I did."
Oh, that's amazing.
So no, I mean, and like I said, like security was tight. It was a little obnoxious. And like, people like that who have a
Sure.
warped sense of things where they like need $700 bottles of wine and then they drink none of them. Like, but he was very personable.
Hmm.
So it was nice. But the night that the Bills players came to see him, they came to the backstage, and so they're hanging out with him. And so they didn't leave until after midnight or like close to midnight. So then I didn't get out of the building till 12:30, which means I didn't get home till 1, which means I really didn't get to sleep till 2. And
Yeah.
I had to be
Yeah.
at 7 work at 7:30 the next morning.
Hmm.
Thank God it was an exam day and I wasn't proctoring exams, so I could sit at my desk and I was like, I have to be here, but I don't have to
But that's it.
be here. Like
Yeah.
um, so, but yeah, so when my kids told me that I need to learn how to go to sleep, I was like, don't I fucking know it. Um,
Yeah. No, your kids would be so upset with my sleep schedule because one, there's not one. But like literally the past like 2 or 3 weeks, I've been going to bed between 11 and 1, but then I'm up between like 2 and 4. Like it is
yeah,
nonsense. It's
the other
nonsense.
day when you texted me that you were on your second cup of coffee already when I was getting ready for work, I was like, what
Yeah.
the fuck is wrong with you?
Yeah. My first cup was at 4. I can't, but I just can't sleep.
Yeah.
Everything's been so like off the walls. Um, But one of my friends, Zach, was trying to like, he was like, why don't you listen to this? Why don't you listen to that? And I was like, because those things are too soft. Like he wanted me to listen to the Sleep With Me podcast. And I was like, I've tried that one so many times because I
Mhm.
want to love it. I want it to help me. Can I go to sleep? Because then my brain's like, this is not enough happening, and it goes off on something else. And so like it's not great for me.
See,
Yeah, so my sleep schedule is not there.
I genuinely like I swear by meditation, like for sleeping.
See, I've tried that about 8,000 times.
Yeah.
It doesn't always do it for me. The best thing I've found so far is to put on a book that I'm mildly interested in so that my brain is distracted enough to want to listen to it, but then turn off all the lights so I don't like have any stimulation. And my brain, if I am tired at all, will usually go to sleep.
Mhm.
It is infuriating because then I do have to re-listen to it. So I'm re-listening to some of the same chapters over and over, and then I'm really annoyed. But I do usually sleep, which is so like pick your battles.
Yeah.
Um, but like I've just had so much work this week, and like I've been trying to like catch up and
No,
pay $4,000 for the
this is what you
bar.
gotta do. You gotta put on old ass episodes of Unsolved Mysteries and put a sleep mask on so the TV light doesn't bother you.
Well, see, here's the thing. I haven't really watched a lot of Unsolved
Oh,
Mysteries,
and you'd
and
be
so
way too
I
invested.
will be invested. And then I
Yeah.
will not wear a sleep mask. Let me start there. I will say I will do that, and then I will absolutely not do that. Um, and then I will be on my phone researching did this get solved? If it did not get solved, did it get added to the new Unsolved Mysteries podcast? It's not new. It's been out for like 7 years.
Yeah.
But it feels new. What kind of like interactions have happened online? What does Reddit have to say? Like, this is not a solution for me.
I know. It's just that the old Unsolved Mysteries has a real like the guy's voice is really
Oh, I know.
soothing. And so and I also used to watch it all the time as a kid with my grandma, so I've seen every episode. So for me, it would just be listening to his voice to fall asleep.
You should really go watch the documentary that came out like a couple years back. I think surely they've released it somewhere. I saw it at Alamo Drafthouse, but surely it's released into the wild somewhere. This was like 2 years ago. It was really good. It was about the Robert Stack days.
I'm like, you know how I'm only up to 2016 in my podcasts that I listen to. But so like everybody's in my podcast just talking about The Witness, the Kitty Genovese documentary that came out. And
I never watched that.
But now I'm like really wanting to watch it because I'm listening to all these podcasts about it. I'm like, should I really never watch that?
I watched a lot of episodes about her and I've listened to a lot of podcasts about her, but I haven't actually watched that.
Weirdly, I studied her in religion class in high school.
We vaguely discussed her in my forensic psych.
But we watched it. We studied her in religion class, but I'm now learning that we studied her completely inappropriately because we studied her to study the bystander effect, which isn't what happened. Yeah. But that's fair.
We also studied it as the bystander effect when I was in my forensic criminal law class or whatever. But we did also discuss how that's like not really it. But that is what we discussed because we were discussing a couple different cases about people pushing people in front of trains in New York. That was a fun time.
Oh,
I loved that class. It was one of my favorite classes. It's the only one I took for fun.
We just like totally went off into nowhere, but how are you? Like I don't know what your actual story for the week was.
We haven't talked. I realized that it's been almost 2 weeks since we recorded because we didn't record since the historical snow we had here in New Orleans.
Yeah.
We got 10 inches of snow where I'm at, and there were varying levels across the
But also I read that was the first time in like
since the 1800s.
150 years that it snowed in New Orleans.
Yeah. Like we've had like flurries apparently, but like not snow. But it was 10 inches. The city closed for 3 days. Because what else are they gonna do? It took me over an hour to get to work on Friday when the city was back open.
I was gonna say, to be fair, Buffalo closed for 2 of those 3 days also, and we're used to snow. So like it was I had like my friends on call because my friends, I'm sure I've mentioned, my friends are all volunteer. Oh, go ahead. Just before you finish telling it, it also, when it snowed in New Orleans, it also snowed in Houston. So Zara finally got to build her snowman.
Oh, I didn't see any pictures, but I knew it.
Oh, she sent, I'll send you the picture Bree sent me. But yes, Zara finally got to build her snowman. So
I love that.
But there was one good thing that came out of the snowstorm.
I mean, I loved it. I mean, I worked 14-hour days every day that I was locked in. So it was I didn't sleep a lot then either, but I did have to play catch up and I did get my money together for the bar exam. So there's that. But yeah, like all my friends are volunteer firemen here and the firehouse is like 4 streets over from me. So they were like all texting me. They're like, let us know if your electricity comes out because at one point, like only emergency vehicles can come through. So we can come through and we will come get you and take you to the firehouse.
Right.
And I was like, okay. And so like intermittently they were texting me and I'm like working all day. So I'm not even like paying attention to people. And I was like, oh, Jesus Christ, Sadie. And I was like, I'm fine. But Sadie wasn't happy about it. I think she thought we were back in New York. She was very confused because it was very cold. But it was beautiful. My God, I got some really pretty pictures over the levee because the levee was totally covered in snow. It was really great. But so that I'm waiting for that again. I'd like to have another snow highlight of my life because my electricity didn't go out. Let me be very clear.
Yeah.
My electricity did not go out. I was totally fine the whole time.
Good.
And my heat works because we got that fixed a few weeks ago. So I had a really great snowed in day and I had plenty of like food and water and stuff. But also because my brain's been running on 90 to nothing, if that's not like super obvious. I've been starting a couple new podcasts. There's one there's 2 that just started like 2 or 3 weeks ago.
Okay.
And one of them is, I don't know what it's called. It's like Uncle Peter or something. and it's about Uncle Peter. Oh, Drop Dead Serious with Ashley Banfield. So Ashley Banfield is like a news anchor somewhere or a journalist somewhere.
Okay.
I had heard the name, but didn't really know her. But she's doing a whole podcast series about Peter Nygard. Um, you've probably heard his name in passing because he owns everything. But it's come out that he's very Epstein-ish, and she grew up basically as like his niece. Like her mom was like best friends with him. And he grew up, I mean, I think she's at 83 now, and he's spending the rest of his life in prison. And so she's doing like a really deep dive into it, and she's interviewing like his actual niece and like the people that worked for him. And it's got 3 episodes, and I have like 3 more minutes on the one I was listening to earlier, and it's really good. But because I'm gearing up for football to end, because we have the Pro Bowl this weekend, but I never watched that. We have 2 weeks left.
No, we have 0 weeks left. Football's over.
Look, girl.
No,
I
no.
get it.
Listen, the only way to get the NFL to stop being fucking stupid is for everyone to boycott the Super Bowl because they are rigging things for money.
But K Money is going to be the halftime show.
Watch it on YouTube later.
Well, I will be watching the Super Bowl. It's the highlight of my life is the football games and their ending. So I found this podcast called Casuals or Casual Casuals with Katie Nolan. And so Katie Nolan has worked in sports for 10 years. And I think she's done a little bit of like different things like between journalism and like interviewing and different stuff. But basically she says this podcast is for people who want to like sports or already love sports because she just gives you like an overview of what's happening in sports and like across the board. She's like, if you're a person who's like diehard NFL, but always thought the MLB would be interesting, you just don't have time to keep up with it, like just drop in. And so like her first guest, I just listened to the first one this morning, and she interviews another guy who has a podcast. I don't really know what he does, but he's a huge Ravens fan. So it came out the week the Ravens lost. And she covered like what was happening in NFL, like where we were going, and then also like apparently the Dodgers always get the best drafts because they pay the most money, and like she went into some of that stuff. And so it was like just little like snippets of different things that I'm like, I don't pay attention to these sports, but I'm interested in them enough to like want to know what's going on. And it's really fun to listen to. And so I think I'm gonna add her to my list, and I'm gonna pick up listening to the Saints Happy Hour podcast, which I went to the live show with Nick and Rachel.
Yeah.
But they're really funny. And since we don't have a head coach yet, want to know their takes.
Sorry about that.
We're the last team to not have a head coach.
Yeah, I know, but it's because they offered it to Joe Brady, who's our offensive coordinator, and he turned it down.
I know.
So that's sorry.
That's who we wanted the most.
I know, but we don't want to give him up. So
I know. I told Nick, I was like, we don't want to keep Ripsy, and he was like, absolutely not. No. I was like, look, I get it. Bless his heart. But yeah, so I think I miss my sports when they're gone, but I don't have the bandwidth to get into baseball or hockey. So I'm just gonna listen to this weekly pod. I think she comes out twice a week with like.
To be fair, the only professional, like the only of the big four that I don't pay attention to is basketball. I don't fucking know anything about basketball.
See, I've been at least like mild, like I pay attention to like college basketball some because we always have a tournament. We always have a March Madness tournament at the office.
Yeah.
And so I paid enough attention to win, basically. Yeah. And then I used to watch it like in college and stuff. But
yeah.
I want to get back to like listening to and watching like college football. Like I miss doing that. And I've been so disconnected from it. And so she talked a little bit about college football today. And I was like, I think this is the right
podcast way to do it. Yeah.
So I'm pretty excited about my new podcast adventures. Wildly different podcasts, but I am excited about both of them. So that's what's going on in my life. Currently, and if you were here last week, I did indeed turn my coffee into wine. But this is all I've left of the Chardonnay, so soon it will also be red. Stay tuned. So while we're spiraling and talking way too much about too many things that don't matter, can you give us a little spiritual guidance, maybe get us back on track?
Sure, maybe. I don't know. Maybe Romeo and Juliet were fated to be together, but just for a while. And then their time passed. If they could have known that beforehand, maybe it all would have been okay. I told Mrs. Snyder that when I was grown up, I'd take fate into my own hands. I wouldn't let some guy drag me down. Mrs. Snyder said I'd be lucky if I ever had that kind of passion with someone, and that if I did, we'd be together forever. Even now, I believe that for the most part, love is about choices. It's about putting down the poison and the dagger and making your own happy ending. Most of the time. And that sometimes, despite all your best choices and all your best intentions, fate wins anyway.
For sure. That's fine. That's okay. That's an okay
Yeah.
one.
Yeah.
Um, a little annoying,
Yeah.
but it's all right. It's good.
It's fine.
So, did you see she's coming out in a new show?
Yeah, I just saw that. I didn't read the article. I just
I
saw
didn't
that.
either.
Yeah. But
I don't know that I found it with an article. I think I found it like as a picture on Instagram, and then there was like not a lot
oh
of
no, I
information.
saw it on my like
Um,
when I swipe to the side and Google gives me articles that might interest you.
mm.
They're usually like spam about Haley Steinfeld and Josh Allen, but
Oh my
um
gosh, I'm obsessed with that. I went through the whole like lore of that with Nick recently because I was like, I feel really after the game. I was like, I feel really bad for him. I just want him to do so much. I was like, but he did marry Haley Steinfeld, and we didn't see her once in this game.
yeah. Yeah, here's the thing. Somebody actually posted, they were like really upset about it. Like, I don't know who, somebody online was like, they went to Dumois and were like, why is Taylor Swift on my screen every 35 seconds and Haley Steinfeld is never on there when she's actually engaged to Josh Allen and Taylor's just dating
Right?
Travis? And Dumois goes, straight up, because she asked not to be shown. Like,
Oh, amazing. I love her. I love her
right.
so much.
She like
So
just
then
goes,
I,
she just like lives here and like goes grocery shopping at Wegmans and like works and like helps local boutiques and shit. Like she's just like a fucking normal person. And
I just love her so much.
um she was like, but my favorite was after they got engaged, there was a giant big billboard in Buffalo that said, the Queen City has a new queen. Congratulations, like Josh and Haley. And she was like,
Yes.
it's one thing to get like cards and like like and well wishes online, but when you're driving down the street and there's a billboard announcing your engagement, it's a lot.
I feel like she's one of those people that like accidentally became famous. Like she just
Yes.
happened to be at the place where they were like, "Hey, do you want to try this?" And she did it, and they were like, "Great, you're in." And she's like, "What?"
Yeah.
Like that is how I feel every time. And she's so good at everything she's in. I mean,
Yeah.
I've loved everything she's been in. It started with Pitch Perfect, so I had to break it all down for Nick and explain to him who she was and show him
Yeah.
pictures. And like, I don't think he cared, but I
But
did break it down very hard because I
yeah.
love her so much. Like, I'm so ready for like Hot Girl to have a season and stuff. Like, because I
I
loved
know.
Hawkeye. Um, but yeah. Anyways, that is my rant about how much I am obsessed with Haley Steinfeld and how thrilled I was when they got engaged. That like rocked my world. I was so excited.
Did you read any of the articles though about it? Like the
I
more
don't
that
remember.
okay, listen, this is my favorite thing. That morning, they like woke up and she was like jumping on the bed in their hotel room and was like, "Why don't?" She was like, "Why can't we just get married already?" And he was like, "Can
Mm,
you just calm down?" And like knowing that he was gonna do it that day. And I was like,
that is adorable.
it's adorable.
I need to find my Josh Allen.
Yeah.
Anyway, so in less happy news, um, today we are talking about Hannibal. Surprise. Um, we have because we have spiraled, so I'm trying to like right.
Yeah.
We are talking about Hannibal, season 3, episode 6, called Dolce. Um, dessert. We all know what that is. I
Yeah.
think we all know enough Italian to know how to find dessert.
Yeah.
Um, it aired on July 9th of 2015. It was rated 8.7 out of 10, which is pretty high.
I
A
think
little too
that's a
high.
little too high.
Little too high. Better than some episodes this season, but still a little high.
Yeah, there was definitely more plot this episode than there has
For
been.
sure.
Um, but which is weird when you think about how much of this episode wasn't plot.
Yeah. Well, I do have a fun fact for you. I told you I didn't. I found one on our
Oh,
break.
good.
So stay tuned. The number one song is Still See You Again. Number one movie is Minions. I cannot remember if that was the same as last week or not.
It is
But
not because
it's
that's the
not.
first I'm hearing of this.
Yeah, it's Minions, which I watched for the first time like last year. Um, and the number one book is Finders Keepers by Stephen King, which we've had for a gazillion weeks now.
Yeah. Wait, you
Um,
said what day in July?
the ninth.
Okay. I just like to see what I was doing in my life.
Yeah, I was in Disney World because we went to Disney. My first trip ever to Disney was when we graduated college and we went for 4th of July. And we ended up staying a week and a half and we were there on the 4th. So we would have still been there on the 9th, I think. Because I think we went down on the 3rd.
I
But
think
so I was living it up in Disney.
I think I was just hanging out with Brianna because earlier that week I tweeted or I posted on Facebook, I just need Brianna Lodick and I to have time off at the same time so we can catch up on our shows. I think we were having a
Mhm.
Big Brother marathon.
Oh, that sounds amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't have anything on Facebook because I'm not good at pictures. I'm sure they're on Cadence. But she's pretty good about documenting that. But yeah, so I was in Disney. I mean, I like Brie, but she's not Disney World. You can tell her I said it. On this day, some like random stuff happened. So the Chuck Blazer had got his received his lifetime ban from FIFA.
FIFA.
Again, knowing vaguely a little bit about the sports. The 48th San Diego Comic-Con was this year, and this is the year that they like announced all the new Star Wars stuff. They started showing the like previews for the new Star Wars coming
Oh,
out.
yeah, okay.
And then the third, Bill Cosby statue was removed from the Florida parks and Hollywood studios because of, you know, all of the things he
Oh,
did.
yeah.
Um, so that was right before you. You were 2016 in Disney?
Yes.
Okay. Um, so our director is Vincenzo Natali, who also directed the episode of When the Lady Was Sewed into the Horse and episode 2 of this season where we had where Will woke up from the coma and had the whole situation with Abigail, that whole episode.
All three of
So
those feel very different.
very different. However, this might be why. Our writers this episode, we still have Steve Lightfoot because man's hanging on
Yeah.
through it all, bless his heart. But our other writer is new to the series, but not new to horror. Our writer in this episode is Don Mancini, who is known for creating Chucky. And so he is known for all of the Chuckies, the TV show, The Bride of Chucky, Child's Play, Don Mancini's Chucky. Like, he is Chucky.
Okay.
So we're looking at like a very different style
Yeah, but
and plot for horror. Um,
okay. I don't feel like that was it though. That I don't feel
I
like
don't feel
that.
like it was either, but I feel like that may be why it felt
I
weird.
mean, some of the dialogue definitely felt like
Oh my God,
distinctly
yeah.
darker, and there was like definitely an edge to it that I haven't seen in a while.
It did, and it had like I haven't seen Child's Play. Let me start there. However, I do know a lot about it, and it's very campy to an extent. And I feel like there were some scenes that I was like, I don't know why they've said these things. Like they feel like they don't fit. They're a little bit campier. And then I read this and I was like,
Yeah,
that makes a little
no.
more sense to me.
Okay. When you put it that way, there's a couple scenes that I was like that. But I think the thing that irked me the most about this episode wasn't even the camp. It was straight up the visuals. The visuals in this
Yeah,
episode were fucking weird. And
they
like,
were.
I know I've been saying that for all of season 3, but like there was a good 5 minutes of this episode that I was like, I don't know.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, it was really weird. And like our editor of the season still Steve Phillipson, which I don't think he's done any of this season. I
Mm,
meant to look that up and got really distracted and
yeah.
didn't come back to it. So let me see. I think he's only been on season 2.
Mm,
Um, do. Um, oh no, he was mostly season 1 because he was Fromage and Roti and Yakumono, Tekawise, Kaiseki, and Mizumono. So he did a
okay.
lot of season 1. Um, our cinematographer is James Hawkinson, and he also was season 1. That's weird. Um, season 1 and season 3. I guess he didn't do as much in season 2. Um, but like, so those are no good reasons for
Yeah.
the show to look so much different than it did. Because like our director is not new. Like all these people have been here before except Don Mancini.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know, but I do have a few fun facts about Don Mancini since he's new. And now all I want to do is cover something that's Child's Play because I want to go into more detail about him. Um, but his favorite song is California Dreamin', by the Mamas and the Papas, which is
Okay.
solid song
Yeah.
choice. Great for horror films too. He was inspired by
Okay,
oh,
sorry. I just have to say, I had a really hard time putting that song in my head for a second. And then I realized it's because I wasn't thinking California Dreaming. I was straight up singing California Love in my head, which is
very
a
different
very different
songs.
song. Yeah.
Yes. Um, TRO song though, so I worked with California Love.
Isn't that
Um,
Snoop?
yeah, but it sampled a Joe Cocker song.
Okay.
Yeah, great song, and that's the song that was sampled for the Kobe funeral stuff. So,
Um,
mhm. um, I do not remember the name of the new song because it was never released. But that's okay. I just worked on it for 2 years. Um, so he was inspired while he was in college at UCLA by the Cabbage Patch Kids. Pretty obvious comparison there.
correct.
Um,
I didn't know
but
that, but I
like
could have
I
guessed.
didn't know that either. But he was like thinking about dolls and he was like, it's never been done this way. Like
Yeah,
dolls have been used in horror since the
forever.
dinosaur
Because
ages,
they're
like
fucking
forever.
terrifying.
Exactly. He was like, but they've never been done this way. Was it? Did a doll get you?
I collected porcelain dolls as a child.
Oh yeah, me too on accident.
Oh no, I mean I didn't know they were creepy, but I was like on purpose. Like I fully
Yeah.
have
Oh
them.
no, my everyone just kept giving them to me. I did not ask for them, is what I'm saying. Like I did know they were there,
Oh no,
but
I wanted them. I have them. I while talking to Dan about some of the things that I own that are not yet at our house, I was like, by the way, I have dolls, and he was like, oh yeah, because he knows I have stuffed animals. I go, no, no, like I have a box that is just porcelain dolls, and he was like, wait, do you want to put them somewhere? I go, what about our bedroom? He goes, absolutely not. I go, I'm
absolutely
kidding,
not.
I'm kidding. But I was like, but I'm not gonna just not have them. So I don't know how we're gonna handle that. But yeah, I just
That's
remembered that
amazing.
conversation.
See, I grew up, my Mimi was a collector of porcelain dolls. Like she had a doll shop that she sold dolls at when I was really little. That's how I
Yeah.
ended up on the radio talking about the shop. And so then she had them all in her house when I was growing
Hmm.
up. And my mom, a couple times it froze over like while I was in New York. And my Mimi lives in town, and my parents do not. And so
Yeah.
she would stay at my Mimi's house in her spare bedroom, and that's where all of
Of
the
the dolls.
dolls were.
Yeah.
She was like, I never slept. But yeah, so I ended up with just like a lot through the years. And having dolls based on you was a huge thing when we were kids. Like I had like whenever my aunt got married, she got me and my cousin dolls that were supposed to be like the porcelain doll version of us.
Love
And
that. Oh my God.
it's it's awful.
Oh my God. I'm gonna do that for all my kids.
Oh great. Trauma. Trauma before they're born. That's fine. But yeah, so I'll just say dolls are hella creepy. And he was like, I'm doing a Cabbage Patch horror film, basically.
Yeah.
That's a paraphrasing. Um, he also uses an AKA of Kit Dubois sometimes,
Okay.
which I didn't know. And last but certainly not least, it was listed that he has won an IGOR, like EYEGORE award. This is something I had never heard of.
Yeah,
So
me
I was
either.
like, what is this? Just a random horror genre. Sure, like very hard category. No. This was given away at the first night of Halloween Horror Nights at Universal every year for like years until 2014. Like Ozzy's won it, like all of these crazy people, and it's supposed to be for horror and sci-fi, like top honors. And this was just like every year. It was like not every year, most years from like 97 to like 2014. And it is the most bonkers thing I've ever heard of, and I'm so sad I never got to be a part of it. Um, I have not been to Halloween Horror Nights, which is also a regret of mine right now. But
I
like,
haven't either, and I don't regret it. I know a lot of people who go every year, and every time I see videos of it, I go, I am not. cut out for something like that.
Yeah.
I told some of my students today because their would you rather question for the day was would you rather go trick or treating or go to a haunted house? Um, and one of them picked the haunted house, and I said, honestly, I couldn't because I get really nervous when there are like when people jump out at me, and I genuinely don't know if my reaction will be to cry or to punch them. And since one
See,
of
that's
the,
why Rachel can't go to
and I
haunted
was like,
houses. She's not invited.
and I was like, since one of them is illegal, I can't risk it.
Right. I mean, she won't cry. She would definitely punch them. That's the problem, is like she would get violent, and you're not allowed to touch them. They're not allowed to touch you. That's most of the
Yeah,
rules.
I think
So you can't be punching people.
I think knowing that you'd get violent is bad enough.
Right.
Not knowing for sure if you'd get violent or not is
Yeah.
a problem.
Right. Like I'm building my tolerance to haunted houses right now. So I've been trying to go. We did the Christmas haunted. I don't know. Did you meet before then? I truly don't know when that was, and I truly don't know when we recorded last of December. But I did the Krampus haunted house this year, which was really fun. One of my friends was Krampus in it.
In 2000, the cast of Buffy and Angel won the Igor Award.
Yeah. And some years they were themed. Like one year they did like a circus theme because it was like a creepy clown theme they were doing. It's absolutely wild. I've never been so delighted.
Christopher Lloyd and Eli Roth won it in the same year.
Because it was sci-fi and horror.
What?
Just off the walls. Off the walls. Yeah, so that is a deep dive I will probably go on at some point in time in my life. It'll be another list. Another list of movies that I'll watch 3 of and then
Why
discard.
did it stop existing after?
I don't know. I haven't found that out yet. I just found this out on the break.
Oh
So I didn't have time to figure out more information. That's why I was like, that was another reason I was like, we got to talk more about Don Mancini like in the future, because I got to deep dive into some of this stuff. I also don't know how I didn't know it existed when Ozzy won it. Like I thought at this point I knew everything about Ozzy. I've done my homework.
Right.
But I guess I missed one. So that's fine, I guess. Anyways, our guest star of the week is Tawakamoto, who goes by Chio in the show. I can confirm I have not covered her before because I knew none of this information I'm about to tell you.
Great.
And that sounds a lot more ominous than it is. It's just normal information. I just didn't know. Just to be clear. She's known for the 2013 Wolverine movie, which was her acting debut. She is known for Batman versus Superman: Dawn of Justice, Westworld, and Hannibal. She was a model. It started modeling at the age of 14 in Japan, and then she like modeled throughout, and she went to Paris and New York and like did the whole shebang. And while she was in New York in 2009, she had like a weird bowl cut haircut that ended up being kind of like iconic for the time. I do not remember this. I was alive in 2009. But so much so that Philip Lim, who is apparently a designer, again, not on the designer like track, made everyone in his fall and winter line of 2009 have the same haircut, like, and based his outfits around that, which is just wild. And then last but certainly not least, she also has had a recurring role in our favorites, Joel Delafinto's show, Man in the High Castle. So just all comes back.
Oh, sorry. I'm looking at Philip Lim's 2009 runway photos, and I do remember that bowl cut.
Yeah. But yeah, so that is our gal. But not for the episode. Okay. We've spiraled so much. These episodes are gonna be the longest of our life. So I hope you enjoy. So now we start with a nice little oh, my ear just came out. I was like, what's that sound? I could just hear like a whistling over my headphones. It's my ear. Good, because I was getting hot. So we go through a like nice little recap of kind of what we've been seeing happen this season. And then we come back to Adelia sewing up Hannibal, where we left off. He had gotten into the fight with Jack and fallen out of a window and walked away. So
and this was the beginning of me being like, what the fuck am I watching?
Right. So she's doing all of this, and they jump over to Inspector Patsy being cut down and taken away by paramedics. So we just kind of like pick up where we left off, like
Yeah.
probably 12 hours after we left off, but like where we left off.
Yeah.
And Jack is there for all this because he's the one who called it in. And then Will walks up. But now Will and Jack are reunited, casually, and they both like give each other the look. I don't know if that was intentional or not, but it for sure happened.
Yeah.
And they start talking about like going out of the law and how like Patsy was no longer like just a detective because he had become a bounty hunter, and Jack was talking about how he was like, I know how things work like outside of the law. Like I've seen it and it didn't go well, obviously.
Yeah.
And then we also learned that even though Jack has given them all this information, he has not told them that Dr. Fell is actually Hannibal. And he starts talking about it, and what did I say? Oh, that's a slip. I was like, where's that word? And so he's telling Will this, and I was like, why did you tell him? And he's like, I know like what happens when you start thinking in that mindset. Like, I think it's a better approach to just kind of go with what you know.
Yeah.
And then he starts talking about it, and he's like, and also like if Hannibal gets wind that they know, he's liable to kind of like run off. And he looks at Will and he's like, would you slip away with him? And Will's like, there's always a part of me that will want to. And it's like, I'll never know the answer to that. Like, I will or I won't, and it'll change every time. Like,
Yeah. Which,
like,
like,
cool.
points for awareness, but
Right. Will had a lot of awareness this episode. If nothing else, he did have awareness. And then he starts asking Jack why he didn't just kill him. He was like, you had every opportunity, like you had him worn down. Why didn't you just kill him? And Jack said, maybe I need you to. I was like, also, again, having good awareness. However, maybe have a
I'm
little bit of
really
faith.
happy for the emotional journey that both of you are going on. However,
Right. Other
you're
people are dying.
enabling a serial killer because you need to sort through your trauma. And I don't know if I can stand by you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But don't worry, we go to our very helpful therapist next. So we're with Hannibal and Bedelia, and it turns out he's getting ready to leave Florence because obviously now he's like, yeah, people know who I am.
Yeah, kind of gotta go.
And he's like looking at all these drawings, and he's like, it's really weird that these are just going to be memories. Like, I'm not going to be able to see these places at least for a very long time, if ever again. And then he's like, I see you packed up, but it's really light.
No,
And Bedelia's like, yeah, this is where you leave. Like, this is the end.
I'm
Like,
not.
and even at this point, I still couldn't tell you if she came on her own or not. Like, I'm like,
Yeah.
because she's
This
able to
whole
stay.
this whole scene when and like she's like, I'm staying, you're leaving. And he's like, she's like, I knew you wanted to eat me and I knew it was gonna be slow. And he was like, I want to taste you. And she's like, yeah, but not now. And then they kiss and
That is
I
literally like word for word almost what I have written down. Like,
like
it was so bonkers.
I was like, Dan was like, what is happening?
Yeah,
And
I just wrote, I'm confused on this relationship.
no, they're confused on this relationship.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's off the walls. Yeah, she says, you may make a meal of me yet, Hannibal, but not today. And I was like, maybe we just don't do that ever.
Ew, like also
Like,
like
maybe not.
is that supposed to be sexy? Because it doesn't feel sexy to me.
No, it feels very icky.
I don't like it.
Like, talk about getting the ick.
Ugh.
Cannibalism, the ick. Which did you speaking of cannibalism, Army Hammer
Yeah.
has been back in the news again.
Oh God, has he?
They don't know if he actually did a lot of those things because he ended up really getting behind a lot of the push for media because it was good publicity and like
Good
made
publicity.
comments. Yeah, like he like made comments about because let's circle back to 3 years ago when we talked about him.
Yeah, we had a whole like 40-minute like thing on the podcast about it because
When we talked about Rebecca.
Because we did Rebecca, and then that week all the cannibalism shit came out, and we were like, "Wow, talk about the timing that we didn't mean to do this with."
Yeah. So like, there's no way to know if it's true or not because he's like not denying it, and he's very clearly saying he's not denying it for publicity. So it's not like he's admitting to it.
Right. And
But
then,
like,
but also weirdly, this is now like the third deep dive into Armie Hammer being a cannibal on this podcast because when we started Hannibal, then we started talking about Timothy Chalamet being a cannibal,
oh
which
yeah,
to like because
which
I was like, well,
spiraled.
he was real
Yeah.
close to Armie Hammer.
True. And did you know, Army Hammer is of the Arm and Hammer family. That is why he's Army Hammer.
Okay, that I did not know.
These are all wild things I found out the past week that I was just like, I don't know what's going
Sir,
on in the
you're named
world.
after baking soda and you're eating people.
Because that's his family. They wanted him to be Army Hammer because the company is Arm and Hammer. Like it's his parents that own it. Like it is so crazy. Again, wild. I know this is wildly stepping away, but it is relevant. It's about cannibalism. Um, but yeah, I thought that was the wildest thing that he was just like, yeah, no, that's fine. You can say that. What? I think he did it. It is all alleged because we don't have any real convictions. But in my heart of hearts, I think he's insane. This did not help. This statement of publicity did not help. Oh, I don't know if this wine is still good. Um,
God.
anyways, so this is also the moment we get to the credits. So what an opening. We have had a very wild opening for this episode. Um, and then we jump over to Mason and Cordell, our dream team. And they're going through this discussion
Right. I
of
opened
what
the
did you
roll. I
find?
opened the Rolling Stone article, and then I was like, "This is gonna spiral me way past what I can handle doing while you're talking." So I had to put my phone
Mhm.
down.
Yeah, yeah. Good plan, good plan. So Mason and Cordell are discussing Mason eating
Okay,
Hannibal.
this scene was the most fucked up thing in me. Like,
I was so confused. This is one of the scenes I rewound. I rewound the scene 3 times. To be fair, I'm not in the mental space to like figure things out as they're
no,
happening. But like, I was like, is this real? And I was like, is he eating real humans or is he eating like
no,
food similar to
he's
humans?
eating
And then he's just
pig.
dreaming.
He was eating pig.
Long pig?
No, what? So Cordell says that it's pigtails prepared the same way a human finger would be.
So that's what I thought, but then it looked like it. And so I was like,
And then he was
is
eating
he lying?
marrow. And then they were talking about like, well, and then they were talking about like how butchering animals is butchering
Mhm.
animals. And like, he's sure his
Yeah,
dad in the process of butchering pigs ate shit that wasn't pigs too. Like, it just is what it is when you're in that line, which to be honest, in and of
not
itself
true.
is a whole episode of the podcast that we could do deep diving into like the meat industry. But that's not
Yeah,
what we're here for.
that's not what we're here for.
Um,
Um,
but then But then he starts having the fantasy. Then he's dreaming.
yeah,
After he weirdly disrespects the fucking shit out of a Buddhist like bowl,
yeah. Yeah,
that got me. Be-
I knew it would. I knew it was gonna send you when
Because
I
then
saw
here's
it.
the thing. When he did that, he then immediately starts having this weird Peking duck fantasy. And when he licks Hannibal, he then got me all over again because he called it transubstantiation. And I was like, what the fuck are you doing?
Yeah, this was such a wild scene that I was like, I am not following what you're doing here. I don't
No.
know why this is all
The
happening.
licking Hannibal as a Peking duck and
Right.
comparing him to the holy sacrament of Jesus Christ's body,
Right.
that was a dream.
Right. Yes, I did get that. I was just like, this is like
The
feels like a dream.
spitting pig bones into a Buddhist breathing
Mhm.
bowl was unfortunately not a dream.
Right. I just wasn't sure if I believed if it was pig or not. That's what really got me. And
Got
it was
it.
it was more like, oh, he's lying or not. But yeah, so he does wake up from this fever dream with Hannibal. And they're seeing Patsy's death on the news. And he's watching it with Cordell and Bloom and Margot, this new quad dream team we have going, I guess. And Bloom starts telling him, she's like, you're gonna have to buy another cop. Like, this is, you may have
Because
to buy the whole
otherwise
force.
they're gonna trace everything back to you.
Right. And you can't be putting bounties on people's heads. It's not allowed.
Especially when they're
Um,
like on international watch lists.
right, right. And then we go back to Bedelia, and Chio walks in, and Bedelia is tying her arm up like she's gonna draw blood or shoot up drugs. So we are seeing that and being like, what's happening? And she introduces herself as his psychiatrist. She's like, I'm Hannibal's psychiatrist. And I was like, I don't know if that's true anymore. I think we're past that relationship. Okay.
I don't know if you know who you are anymore.
Well, that's pretty obvious pretty soon. So then we get into this like weird little back and forth where like Hannibal's a bird and Bedelia says she's a bird, and then they go into these like insanely lengthy analogies about birds. And I was like, this dialogue is so unnecessary, which is how I felt a couple of different times in this season.
Yeah.
Um, I just don't understand
There
why we
was
have to
there
do
was only
this.
one line of this of the weird dialogue here that I liked. And that was at the end when Bedelia says to Chio, I always thought Will was Hannibal's biggest mistake, but I think it
Yes.
might be you.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
because
And
that was interesting because Will clearly has a conscience. Will clearly struggles with his relationship with Hannibal. Chio doesn't give a fuck.
yeah, because she's been too jaded. I mean, she's kept a prisoner for all these
She's been
years.
broken for way longer and from a
Hmm.
way younger age. So
Yeah,
like leaving her alive was a much bigger mistake than leaving Will alive.
absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, because and that all comes about because she's talking about she wants to cage Hannibal.
Yeah.
And I was like, I mean, that's good, but he'll probably get out. Like,
Yeah,
people aren't really
I don't
good at
know if you
keeping him
know,
locked
but
up.
that he's not a bird that can be caged.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, but then like after they have this whole conversation, Bedelia's just like, if you'll excuse me, I have to take my medicine. And I was like, this doesn't
No.
feel good. And I was like, is her medicine heroin? We do learn in a minute what it is. It is not heroin, but
No.
that is
But can I
what I
tell
was
you,
confused.
I wish it was. I wish it was an overdose and that she was just dead because making me watch a fucking nasty ass close up of her injecting.
It
I had
was wild.
I had literally just before I started watching Hannibal been talking to Dan about the fact that I got blood work ordered at my doctor's appointment today and how I hate blood work. And
Mhm.
he was like, because you don't like needles. I was like, no, it's not the needles that bother me. It's the blood. It's like skin and veins and blood. I can't handle it. And then Hannibal was like, here, you can't handle it. Have it on a 65-inch TV with nothing in the picture but the needle and the skin and the blood and see how you
Yeah,
feel
yeah,
about
yeah.
it.
They really did it up for you this
They
episode.
were like, fuck
Mhm.
you and the horse you rode in on.
Absolutely, yeah, yeah. Um, well, at this point, which is the right time for everything to happen, Will and Jack stop by to visit Bedelia. These all of these people in this episode just like conveniently show up at the time they need to. Like Will
Yeah.
and Jack haven't seen each other since they've left. Well, they saw each other briefly, but like it doesn't feel like they planned this day.
No.
And like obviously they haven't seen Bedelia since ages ago, and they just show up on her doorstep. And it's like if you're just showing up on people's doorsteps, why have we not caught Hannibal? Like you obviously knew his whereabouts. Um, and so she starts talking to them, and she's like, I'm fine. My husband's a doctor. He's treating my condition. And they're like, what condition? And she just kind of goes by that. She's telling him, she's like, no, I'm Lydia Fell. Like, and they're like, you're Bedelia. And like, I thought Will was about to just like throw a chair against the wall. And I was like,
Yeah.
honestly, I would too.
Yeah.
Um, because they don't believe her, obviously. They're like,
No.
no, no, no. We know who you are. We've known you for a long time. This isn't gonna work. And then this is where we learned that this is the same concoction that he was giving Miriam Lass to make her not know who he was, basically.
Yeah.
Um, and Will just goes off at this point.
Yeah.
Um, and so I don't know how much I believe of anything, first of all. I think it's messing with her brain some, but I think she knows what's going on.
No, I don't.
Like,
I
you don't think
think
she knows anything?
no, I think that she's drugging herself because she doesn't want to know. And
See,
it's,
I thought about that too.
I don't know if it's to protect Hannibal or it's to protect herself from the reality of what she and Hannibal did.
Yeah.
Because I still don't know how in on the relationship she was. So if she didn't want to be there, she's protecting herself from the memory of what happened. If she did want to be there, and this is just another part of the game, and she's just protecting Hannibal, like those are two very different motives, but I genuinely think
Right.
she's drugging the shit out of herself to the point where she doesn't know what's real.
I think that is her goal. I don't think she's there yet. And
Mhm.
I'll get to that in a minute. Um, so
Okay.
then we pop over to Margot and Mason. Um, and we learn that Margot's been making friends in Italy. Good for her. And they start talking about like regrets. And he's like, my biggest regret was taking away your ability to have a child because the two of us
Okay.
could have had a baby. And the entire rest of the scene, I wanted to vomit.
I wanted to vomit as soon as the scene started because Margot was so perky and sweet and nice
Yeah.
to Mason. And I was like, I understand that you're like protecting yourself, but what is happening?
Yeah. I do believe it's all an act to
Oh
protect
no, it
herself.
is. It is. But I also was like,
But it
"Ah,
is not great.
no.
Don't love it. Um, yeah. So then we pop over to because she's also talking about this, like as he's trying to like have a baby with his sister. She's like, yeah, I understand. I brought this upon myself. And I was like, homegirl, get out of there. Like he can barely move. Please
Yeah,
go
she was
somewhere.
like, I
I
brought this upon
understand.
myself. And he says, as you so often do. And I was like, yo,
Yeah.
fucking
And I was like,
dagger
I
to the
get he has
nuts.
the money. And if you kill him, you can't have it. So you have to like play these games. But I guess at least he can't abuse her anymore, like physically. I don't know. Just feels like a lot. Like maybe it's better to just be broke girl. Um, so then we go back to Hannibal and Will, and Will has appeared at the museum to talk to Hannibal. Again, everyone seems to know where everyone is at all times, so they just show up when they want. Um,
Yeah,
and they're talking about like the future and now, and Hannibal's like, if I saw you every day forever, I would remember this time. And I was like, I get now why we've had a Hannibal Will shipping, because they do sound like they're star-crossed lovers in every
correct.
episode now. Um, and followed shortly by him asking about like how do you separate time, and Will's like, the past and present is before you and after you. Like truly, truly star-crossed lovers. Everything you can imagine.
What about it?
Um, and so then he brings up Chio and he's like, I got to know Chio, and he's like, oh, how is she? He was like, well, she pushed me off the train. He's like, oh, good for her. It's like,
Yeah, no, that moment where he was like, she pushed me off a train, and it wasn't even just that he said good for her. He said, "Atta girl." I said, "Who
yeah,
the fuck are you?"
I know. I was like, what a time.
I was like, "Are you somebody's
Um,
grandpa?"
right. This is he sounds like he's 1,000. But Will also tells him, he's like, you and I have begun to blur. Like it's kind of hard to like tell reality and fiction between who we are at this point. Um, and they go into this whole thing about them being conjoined and if they're capable of even like being separated or if it will destroy them to be separated. And Chio comes out with a sniper and shoots Will. Because why not? Why not?
Dan's reaction was, "Why does everything happen to Will?" Well, because that's what this show is, sweetheart.
Yeah, that's how it goes. That's the story. Um, and we go to Margot, and this was the weirdest, longest visual.
Okay, was
I was
was
like,
this the lesbian
yeah,
kaleidoscope?
yeah. So I was like, is she, at first I could not tell. I thought it was just her in the image, and
Well,
then I
because
just saw
at
bodies,
first
and so I
it
was like,
was just her.
right. But I was like, is this her like reminiscing about like Will or like what's happening? And then when
No.
it pulls apart all the images, you realize
Yeah.
it's her in Bloom.
Yeah, and Dan goes, is she with Alana? I go, uh-huh. And he goes, well, I go, I don't know. I don't. It was A, weird.
Yeah.
B, came out of fucking nowhere. And C, unreasonably long. Like
Unreasonably long. Yeah.
unreasonably. Like I understand, ooh, cool kaleidoscope vision, all skin. You can tell they're having sex without having to show sex on the scene, blah blah blah.
Right.
But A, what show did you make that for? Because it wasn't this one.
Right.
Um, B, what was the point? Like I Okay, Alana and Margot are hooking up behind everybody's back. Cool, great. Good for them, I guess. We knew Margot was gay. Like that has been an established fact.
Yeah.
Alana apparently just sleeps with anyone who will give her attention because she's fucked up.
Alana just picks the worst person available and then goes and sleeps with them
I mean, to be fair, she's not fucking Mason, so second worst person available.
because he's not capable.
Fair.
We don't know that there's more reason than that.
Well, at least we know she crosses crippled off her list of unnecessary sex partners.
That
Um,
is true. That is true.
but okay, so Margot is gay. Alana is desperate and completely mentally unhinged. You wanted to have a cool visual to show that they were having sex. Fine.
Mhm.
It didn't need to be 2.5 minutes long and straight up look like a kaleidoscope.
Right. Yeah. No, that was such an unnecessary visual. I'm like, oh my God, it was truly like an unnecessary moment. I think it happened because I believe I only vaguely know stuff from the books because I have not read them all. But I do believe that Margot ends up with the person who played Bloom, and Bloom was originally a man. And so I think that actually was a storyline from the book, whereas obviously her with Hannibal and Will was not the same. It was not in the book.
Right.
And I don't know 100%. I do know that Bloom was originally a man.
Yes, we
And
talked about this during the movies.
I do believe that was a storyline because Margot was a much bigger storyline in one of the books.
Okay.
And so I think that was supposed to happen. It just, based on what we've had set up, doesn't fit here.
Right. And honestly,
Like,
I don't even care if they were trying to fulfill a book plot point. And to be
right,
honest, I don't care if Margot and Alana do hook up and Alana
right,
just discovers her sexuality and it's fluid and she's bisexual or she is
right.
gay and she just slept with men because she has daddy issues. Like, I don't care what any of the answer is. It's just that it A has nothing to do with the plot that we're working on for this season. And B, I cannot get over the fact that I watched a kaleidoscope that was just lesbians.
I know. I know. It was so not the right show for that.
Like it was like it honestly looked like a 70s porn, softcore porn montage.
Yeah. I was thinking it's like one of those things like I never stumbled upon this as a child. Other people in the world seem to have, but like a Cinemax show that you show up at like 3 a.m. That was the vibes I got.
Skinamax.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, no, yeah, but no, to me, what it looked like was a movie that was rated PG-13 trying to have like a 70s movie trying to have a
Right.
sex scene, but not wanting it to be a sex scene. So they did some weird, cool, hippie kaleidoscope bullshit.
Yeah. Yeah. It was wild. It was crazy. I did enjoy it.
I hated it.
Yeah. But don't worry, we've moved on from that. Because that was a very long scene to have nothing else happen.
Correct.
We go next to Bedelia Jack, the detective. And the detective is
Wait,
telling
did the conversation that the girls had post-coital happen before or after this?
probably before. I do not have that written down.
Was this because Alana is like said, I don't know what she said or whatever, and Margot was like, I just need one more thing before we can do this. Do you know how to harvest sperm?
I totally missed that.
Yeah, she literally, after having sex with Alana, was like, I just need one last thing for my brother before we get rid of him. Do you know how to
Oh,
harvest
I
sperm?
did.
And I was
I
like,
do remember
and I
that.
was like, oh, everything about this
Yeah.
makes me uncomfortable.
Yeah, it was icky. Yeah, it was then. That's when that happened.
Yeah.
So we go over to the detective and we have the detective telling Bedelia about their expectations and their theories that Dr. Phil has killed everyone. And she's like, I can't even imagine it. Like I wasn't involved. Like we spent a lot of time with these people. And then Jack kind of cuts in and he's like, BT dub, it's not Dr. Fell, it's Hannibal. Um, and the detective just kind of like dismisses him.
Yeah.
And then he's like, you don't really have business here for the FBI, so goodbye. And so Jack leaves, but Bedelia stays. And then we hop back over to Hannibal and Will. And Hannibal is like manhandling Will. So the bullet that shot him is still inside of him, which is never good.
No.
And he is just like shaking him around like a rag doll. Like Will has probably never been in more pain. And he's like, "Oh, Chio's always been protective of me. It's cool. Everything's fine. This all makes sense." And then he starts drugging Will. Cool. Always a good sign. And then we go into like this. I called it Will's mind palace, but that is not the right correlation. But he goes into this like dream-like state, where Hannibal's like making dinner and he's asking him like what he's cooking, and then he like starts to come out of it a little bit, and Hannibal is strapping him to a chair for dinner.
I don't think that conversation was imagined. I think what he was seeing while it was happening was imagined.
Right. That's why I said like kind of like it's
like a quasi
he's in his head, but it's happening in real life.
Yeah, like Hannibal was like, oh, like he had, what are you cooking? And Hannibal goes, I can't tell you, that would ruin the surprise.
Right. And that was all like part of what was happening in there, but we were in Will's weird mind thing.
Where he was seeing burnt deer man.
Yeah, yeah. But also, as timing happens in this episode, Jack shows up at the same time as Chio to this dinner party. And he walks in and sees Will strapped up, and Will is like barely there.
Yeah, but Chio tries to be really sketchy, and I don't think she knows who Jack is.
I don't think she does, but she also like doesn't get involved.
She also knows she's being followed. Like she knows Jack only knows what floor to go to because he followed her off of the elevator. So she's like, "Oh, wrong floor," and like goes downstairs. But Jack's like, "Okay, well, obviously not the wrong floor." So that's why he goes into that room.
Yeah. Yeah, so he goes in and he sees Will and goes to talk to him, and Will is like barely there, and he's like, he's under the table. And at that moment, Hannibal slices his ankles. Not great. Effective, not great for Jack.
Yeah.
And so we hop back over to the detective and Bedelia, and this is where I think she knows more than she's acting like, because he starts showing her the pictures that he knows they're not the real Fells, and she holds her story true. She's like, "That's not my husband." And he's like, "No, I know this is Dr. Fell." She's like, "No, my husband is Dr. Fell." Like she keeps up the routine, but then towards the end, he's like, "Your like cooperation would be good for you." And she starts bringing up, and she's like, "I know you're not currently working for the Quistera." Like she has all of this knowledge that one she shouldn't have, but because she like is enough in her right mind, she knows more than I think she's letting on.
I wonder if that is an actuality or like the drugs wearing off.
Yeah, it could also be that. But that's why I don't think she's like completely taken over by the drugs. Like I don't think they've completely altered her state. Miriam last was completely altered. Like she couldn't remember anything. She was triggered by different things. I don't think they fully.
Well, but also if she just started doing it to try to protect herself, she's only been able to put so much like memory.
Yeah.
Plus it's hard to be the one conditioning yourself when you're drugged.
Right.
So I wonder how like it I'm not saying you're wrong. You could be absolutely right, but I wonder how much of it is like that she knows something or that she is failing at her attempt to erase the memory.
Yeah. Yeah. It could be any of those things. Cause also like we don't know how long she's been doing this. Like maybe she started today. Maybe she started when Hannibal left. Maybe she started months ago because she couldn't live with the fact that she was doing all of these things. Like it just kind of depends on where everything falls.
Right. I don't think she started that long ago because she always called Hannibal to his face.
Right.
So
I don't think so either. But I don't know. Um, so anyway, she's like, I want to be cooperative. Like, I want to do this. And so now I'm like, okay, retake, because this is also what happened with the FBI. She was like on board with them and then ran off with Hannibal. So is she on board, or is she just placating another
Yeah.
detective agency? Um, so we pop back over to Jack and Will and Hannibal, and um, Hannibal's talking about crazy things, and he's talking about how like Jack suggested getting in Will's head first. He was like, "This all came about because of you." And as he's going through this whole scenario, he's pulling out a saw, and Jack is trying to tell him to stop, but he starts drilling into Will's head. And he like scalps him. So he doesn't like draw like into his brain, but he like scalps him. And then we have this weird visual scene where he ends up like upside down and he looks like he's put back together. And you said you knew what happened here, and I said I did not.
Okay.
So,
Yes. So what happened? Margot, way earlier in the episode, said she made new friends in Italy. The police officer who was talking to Bedelia, who was not working with the police, was now working for Margot and Mason. So when Bedelia tells the police officer Hannibal's somewhere where no one's supposed to find him, he goes there. He interrupts the chainsaw to the head and knocks Hannibal and Will out. Will and Hannibal wake up upside down, hogtied in Mason's farm because they were turned over to Mason by Bedelia and the police officer.
I watched this scene 3 times and I did not see
The scene didn't tell you that. The scene didn't tell you that. Like I said, Dan was so mad because the scene ends with them upside down and Mason says,
and we go to
Mason, welcome to the farm. Dan was mad. He goes, "What the fuck just happened?" And I go, "Okay, so here's what happened." And I explained it to him. He goes, "But you shouldn't have to explain it to me. Like it shouldn't be so convoluted that you need to explain it to me." To be fair, I think like a serial killer, which is a terrible thing to say out loud, but like I got it. I knew what was happening. I saw the story pieces happening, and I knew they weren't going to kill Will yet. So
well, sure, I knew they weren't going to kill Will either. Yeah.
So I'm sure next episode, the beginning of the episode is going to be filling us in on what we missed, because that's what they do. But I'm 99% sure that what happened is the Italian police officer collected the bounty by turning both Will and Hannibal into Mason. However, I don't know where Jack is.
Yeah.
So, like, I still don't know everything. I still don't know how it all worked out. But Hannibal did not finish taking Will's head off.
Right. I got that part. But I didn't understand what happened after.
Yeah, the police officer definitely. I mean, and to be fair, somebody turned in the bounty, but it was the police officer.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know who else it would have been. So
right. Well, because
he's not currently working for them.
Alana tells Mason he may have to buy off the entire police department. Margot says she made a friend in Italy. Bedelia says, "I know you're not working for the police right now." So like all of those things put together add up to that's what he's doing. It's just that you have to be skilled at adding those things up in the moment.
Yeah.
Which I will say, that's why I will say I do understand, like, Don Mancini is a good writer. I do understand that the script was much more like pull a thread here, pull a thread here, pull a thread here, make a bow. Like I appreciated that aspect of it. Which is why I said this was probably the best episode of the season so far.
Yeah.
My actual problem with it was that the visuals, there were too many really uncomfortably unnecessary visuals without dialogue for one episode. There was the Hannibal like stitches in the beginning. There was the blood draw. There was the lesbian kaleidoscope. There was the Will's head chainsaw. One of them, two of them even could have happened. To have 4 multi-minute long segments of really uncomfortable graphics in a 40-minute episode was a lot when you could have done so much more.
Yep. Yep. No, I definitely agree with that. Especially because like we're coming up on, I mean, the halfway part of the
Yeah.
season. And so things have to start happening and they have to start
Mhm.
happening pretty quickly. Um, so it's like you said, it's a waste of time, like it's a waste of space. And
Oh, also no,
at
I
this
lied
point,
because it's not even four, it's five because you also add in fucking the weird Jesus Peking duck dream.
yeah, yeah. Um, but you look at like this season has been like that's the thread of the season is the weird visuals that are unnecessary.
Yeah.
Um, and the season has not performed well.
No.
And at episode 6, you know that. And sometimes they do, I don't know the schedule of filming, but I do know sometimes they do first half, second half. Sometimes they do episode by episode. Sometimes they have it all completed before they go to production. Sometimes they don't when it's season.
Right.
Like you just never know. And so like maybe they had it all done, but also like you see these things coming in, you edit it out. Like there are ways to fix that or to
Well,
change it or add in post stuff, like post
well,
production. Like,
my fear is that the visuals are to make up for the fact that they just didn't have enough material.
yeah.
Which doesn't make sense when you think about the fact that
Mhm.
Brian Fuller had 7 seasons planned out. But
And also,
something is clearly not happening
yeah,
correctly.
because we also have half a season and haven't gotten to the Tooth Fairy storyline. Like, we have a lot that we could be building up and a lot that
Yes.
could like I mentioned last episode, like this season has a lot of potential. I love the idea of running away to Italy
Hmm.
because one, it ties in like the mental anguish and grief of Jack. It ties in Hannibal's background. It ties in like
Well,
all these
and
different
think about it.
things.
We introduced Chio and we had that one random line drop in like
Mhm.
episode 3 or 4 about the fact that like Hannibal's actually the one who killed his sister.
Yeah,
But we haven't done shit since then with his backstory. Like,
right.
we're throwing a lot of things at the wall to see if they stick, and then they're all sticking, but now we're stuck with, oh shit, now which one do we pick up? Like
Yeah,
it's not, I don't know.
yeah. And that's the thing is like it didn't because we had a lot happen in the other seasons too,
Yeah.
but they moved with it. They were like,
Yeah.
we have to address 7 things this episode. We're just gonna do it. And like
I'll be
they're not
really
doing that here.
curious. I'm really curious for when we get to the season wrap up for this and we
Mhm.
get to like do some more digging, especially because then the show will be over, so nothing that we dig into will be spoilery.
Right.
So like doing some actual like digging on some of the production and stuff. I'm very curious when we get to that
Yeah.
season wrap up to see what we find out because
Yeah.
it's a journey that I'm not sure I'm happy I'm on.
Right. Because also at this point, like, because it feels so separated, it's like, is this a cast issue? Like, are we having issues getting the cast filming at the right time? Are we getting, is this where Brian Fuller's falling apart and he's like stepping away from the show more? Like, and so we're
Right.
not getting the storyline? Like, what's happening
Well,
behind
and
the scenes that's
especially
making this
because
so
now,
crazy?
10 years later, there's so many interviews that Mass and Hugh are doing where they're like, we loved it. We would go back in a
Yeah.
heartbeat. Like everything about
Right.
Hannibal was amazing. So like it doesn't feel like there's
Well,
problems.
I don't mean like cast problems like that. I mean like what like is Lawrence Fishburne filming something else? Like is he not
Right.
available? Like
No, but I
is
mean
Gillian
like it
Anderson
just
not available?
oh,
Like
I just meant by that like it doesn't feel like it's strained. Like
yeah.
it's not like there's like any bad
Not like bad
blood.
feelings or anything.
Yeah,
No,
like and
yeah.
like and sometimes even if a person is not um antagonistic, if scheduling conflicts create bad blood just because like there's weird feelings and strain
Yeah.
behind the scenes, and that doesn't seem to be what happened, at
Yeah.
least from retrospectively.
Right. Because also like you want to look at like maybe it's a like it could be if it was some anything else, you're like, what's the monetary issue? Like maybe they're filming really like everything in one scene or they're doing all of this and it's money saving. But this show has been really successful for 2 seasons
Right.
on a major network.
Yeah.
Like there's no reason they should be having like budgetary concerns at this
And
point.
it wasn't even a year where so it's funny, Dan, like I told you we've been watching The Rookie and
Mhm.
we were watching it and he's looking at like Hulu or Disney, whatever we're watching it on, and he was like, "Well, why does this season only have 9 episodes?" And I said, "Which season is that?" And he was like, "Season 3." And I was like, "Oh, that was COVID year." And he goes, "Oh,
Mm-hmm.
okay." And so then we were like scrolling down. He goes, "Yeah, but this season only has so many episodes." I was like, "Yeah, that was the writer's strike." So like when you look at it and
Yeah.
like what I can tell you based on years why something might be stagnated based on what was happening. 2015 wasn't a year where everything like where things shut down like that. So
Right.
whatever happened to the show happened between Fox and the show, like
Yeah.
not between the world and TV.
Right. Right. Yeah. So it's really strange. And my best guess is a Brian Fuller issue because that is a recurring theme.
Mhm. Which we
But
have talked about endlessly on this
yeah.
podcast.
Because everyone stayed the same, like for the most part. I mean, Steve Lightfoot is on every episode. He's a
Yeah.
writer credited on every episode. So like our writing team
And
is
he's not even credited,
there.
is not even credited as like, because like I know on Stargate, um, Roland Emmerich and whoever else from the movie are always credited as
Right.
on for as created by,
Yeah.
and Brad Wright and the other guy are always created as developed for television
Yeah.
by. But you're talking hard like credited as
Writers.
a
Because
writer.
like Tom Harris and Brian Fuller are also credited every time, but they're
Yeah.
again creators. And
Yeah.
so like, but he is the writer every time. And every now and then there's another one, like we had Don Mancini and stuff like that. But like
Yeah.
he's straight through a writer on every
Which,
episode.
to be fair, may be a contractual thing where he
Yeah.
wrote an overall arc for the season and
Mm,
therefore was credited as the head writer for every season because of an overall plot development.
that's true
But he
too.
didn't actually write the dialogue or the
Yeah.
scene direction for that episode. It could be a contractual thing where he actually just like
Yeah.
wrote snippets slash overarching ideas.
And it's
Um,
possible he did that and they filled it in instead of having a real script written because that would make it feel more spaced out too. Like
yeah.
we feel like there's something missing. And there's not enough context. It could be that he did it overarching and they were like, yeah, that's good. Let's do that because we don't have time or
Well,
money or
and if you think
whatever.
about it, if you look at the other 2 seasons and think about maybe the fact that like Brian Fuller did that arc and then Stephen
Hmm.
Lightfoot filled it in, and then season 3 comes around, Stephen Lightfoot does that arc, but then whoever fills it in isn't as talented as Brian and Stephen. Like maybe,
Right.
but again, this is all speculation. I'm
Hmm.
just I feel bad because every single episode of Hannibal for season 3 has turned into me talking about how I don't understand how the show was written the way it was written.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's totally a fair critique though. And it's like, and it's not that this is season one and we're like, I don't know how this got here. Like maybe they're still developing. It's like they did this for 2 years. They've done two full
And
successful seasons.
for 2 full seasons, we were raving about how we did not expect the show to be as good as it
It
was,
was
and we were
similar
blown
teams.
away.
Like it's a
Blown
lot of the
away.
same directors, writers, editors, like everyone's the same.
Yes.
The showrunners, everyone is like the same.
And we
So
were
it
blown
doesn't make
away for two
sense,
seasons, and now all of a sudden,
which is why I feel like it's a Brian Fuller issue. Why I'm leaning towards that direction.
well, because part of it feels like they took it and were like, hey, we got away with so many things. Because think about it, there were some weird ass shit in season 1 and 2
Yeah,
visually, and they were like, hey, we pushed and we pushed and we pushed. We can keep pushing. And then they like lemmings themselves over a cliff.
yeah.
Like,
Because also they had a counterpart to the weird visuals because like they'd have a really dark scene and then a weird visual, or they'd have like
yeah.
something major happen and then a weird visual. And here it's like, here's a weird visual, and now they're walking down the street. And
And
it's like there's no balance
no,
there. Like
yeah.
you can't just throw it in there because you thought it looked good. Like that's not how that works. But yeah, so it's just a weird season and I'm concerned.
Yeah.
But we'll see. We're like I said, we're about halfway, so we're getting ready to finish it up and move on from Hannibal for a bit. But no, we're not. We're going to Clarice next. So, but
Yeah.
we're leaving NBC for a bit. Um, so we'll see how it goes. Do you have any other thoughts about this episode? I don't have any other trivia.
No,
So
no, but I said One
um,
Piece.
so then, who do you want to watch?
Mason.
I'm gonna
I
drop
know
that right
he's
there.
definitely not the worst in this episode. Like, I could have chosen worse.
I don't know. He's
Chio
pretty
was where
bad.
like Chio did some pretty fucked up things. Hannibal did some pretty fucked up things. Bedelia does some pretty fucked up things. But like Mason just gives me the ick on top of doing fucked up things, and I can't.
Yeah. Yeah, totally agree. Totally agree. Um, you know, I want to punch Blue. I understand that she was not super active in this episode. I get it. But my God, if she makes one more wrong choice, I just, she should have died in season two. I'm so sick of all of
Okay,
this.
not even related to her life choices. For
Mhm.
the plot, she should have died in season two. The fact,
See, I'm okay with her coming back to life from season two if she's now like vigilante. I'm gonna do this on my own. I'm gonna join back up with Will. We're gonna
but here's the
rekindle our
thing.
friendship only. Um,
Here's the thing. The fact that three of the four of them made it out alive
yeah,
completely ruins the impact of the thing.
right. It is really off the wall.
So I wanted her dead already just for the
Yeah,
plot, and now she just continues to make terrible life choices.
every day, every day. Well, not know who is your MVP?
Was there
I know,
anyone?
no, there wasn't.
Um, the costume designer who makes Chio's outfits.
Fair, fair.
Like,
Um,
I love
that is
how
a good pick.
we just keep finding ways to not pick anyone. Like
I
I
know.
like on Sunday when you just picked Michael Shanks as an actor, like not a single character, just his acting.
Yeah, no,
Like
just that.
the costume designer.
Yeah, I think I am gonna go with Jack. He wasn't exceptional, but he was the best of the worst.
Yeah.
So, he did try his hardest, bless his heart. Um, but yeah, well, that is that. So if you have any feelings, if you want to talk about season three, if you know a non-spoiler reason this season has devolved the way it has, hit us up. You can
Please.
email us deathandaliens@gmail.com. And us on all of the social media at Death and Aliens. You can find me at CECloud13,
And you can follow me everywhere at EMKAY_superstar.
and we will see you on Sunday. And we don't know what's about because Mary Kate forgot to give us a teaser.
I sure
So
did.
that's fine. We'll see
Bye.
you. Bye.